Wow, Rob, setting up that popcorn stand outside was a great idea.
I swear this winter festival gets bigger every year. We sold more popcorn today than we did all last week.
So are you thinking what I'm thinking?
That you never want to do this again?
Yeah, or maybe we hire someone else to do it next time. Welcome to Rewind Video. I'm Bob.
I'm Rob.
And we love movies. Good ones, bad ones, old ones, new ones, movies that make money and movies that follow it. Rob, I'm going to be honest. One of my least favorite parts of the job here at Rewind Video is working the register.
That's one of the only parts of the job.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's other stuff.
Yeah, okay, I gotcha.
But, of all the things that we have to do, I understand that working the register is how we keep the lights on, but the whole transactional element of renting movies just feels a little icky to me.
Yeah, I don't love it. I wish we could just do this for free, but it's on both sides of it. We got to make money. We got to take money.
I wish we could just charge people for renting the bad stuff, like Battlefield Earth or Popeye. And then, when somebody plucks something off the staff...
Nobody rents those pieces of shit, though.
Right, that's true. And then, when somebody plucks something from the staff recommendation shelf, we could just kind of pat them on the back and say, this one's on us.
Well, maybe we could start doing that and not tell management.
Yeah, let's see if at least, the lights stay on.
Yeah.
And
they don't listen to the podcast anyway.
Yeah, the paychecks keep rolling in. So speaking of that staff recommendation shelf, you and I are tasked with ensuring that there are always a fresh selection of films lying in it. Each time we update the movies, we adhere to a theme, and this week's theme is commerce. And
when you're done with the episode, don't forget to pick up one of our T-shirts or maybe a large popcorn on your way out.
Yeah. Stock up. We sell more than just movies.
Exactly. All kinds of stuff.
Yes. So we just recently covered money. And while money is a part or can be a part of commerce, this is about something bigger. Buying and selling, goods and services, business in action. Right?
Yeah, we've done business, we've done money, we've done jobs. All of those things are parts of commerce.
Right.
But also commerce is kind of its own separate thing. It is kind of almost an ethereal entity.
Well, I kind of agree with that because I thought about some of our previous similar themes, and I don't know, this occupies a certain niche that is deserving of its own selection of films.
Yeah, and we're in a time of year when commerce is all around us.
Oh, yes, we certainly are. That'll come up more than once tonight, or at least definitely once.
Definitely once.
Definitely once. I did notice some other trends as it relates to our selection of films. And we've got two movies tonight that do that thing where they put mid-20-somethings in the role of high school students.
That's one of my favorite things.
Yeah,
honestly.
It never gets old. TV, movies, they all do it. Those same two movies happen to be films that I owned the soundtracks for when I was much younger.
Nice.
And I gotta say, both films still banger soundtracks.
We got some soundtracks tonight. We're
Yeah.
gonna get into some of these.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say before we get into our selection of films is that I don't want to jinx us, but I think that I've got a better than average selection of taglines.
I do not.
Okay.
It's probably average.
We never go 6 for 6.
Never. No. For some reason, Hollywood can't get this right. There's a lot that Hollywood gets wrong, especially nowadays. Run times, content. They don't make mid-level adult movies anymore. They don't make comedies anymore.
Right.
But they fucking cannot write taglines to save their lives.
No, they can't.
That probably isn't why they're having the financial problems that they are, but maybe.
Who knows?
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to get into these 6 movies. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about. So why don't you get us started with your first pick for Commerce?
Okay. Speaking of one of those soundtracks, this movie is from 1995, the golden age of soundtracks.
Yes.
The movie is Mallrats.
That was one of the films I was talking about.
Yeah, written and directed by Kevin Smith. Clerks and Red State have both been on the shelf. Clerks actually for soundtracks. The episode that we did on soundtracks, I believe.
Indeed,
right?
yes.
This is filed under food courtship.
Okay. I like that.
Back of the box. Both dumped by their girlfriends, two best friends seek refuge in the local mall. Eventually, they decide to try and win back their significant others and take care of their respective nemeses.
Yes.
This actually is the best tagline I have tonight. They're not there to shop. They're not there to work. They're just there.
That's accurate.
That's a good one.
That's good. A good one. Yeah, that's good. Good tagline.
This is Kevin Smith's second movie after Clerks, which was like an independent phenomenon of the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of wonder kids of that era. There was Tarantino and Soderbergh and Linklater,
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kevin Smith was just kind of one of those guys. His career since then has gotten not complicated, less relevant, I guess.
Yeah, accurate.
I think if he had come of age at literally any other time in history, I don't think he'd be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
I think it was a very narrow slice of time where like an artist like him would want to become an independent movie maker. Mm-hmm. And I think if he would have been a little bit older or younger or whatever, he probably would have ended up like a playwright or writing magazine articles or something.
Yeah.
But like in the mid 90s, that was something that these kinds of guys aspired to, you know?
I wonder, did his trajectory toward becoming less relevant begin with Mallrats?
Yes, I think it did. I think it was kind of an early red flag that his brand of storytelling is not going to have a huge mainstream success.
Right.
Clerks was a no-budget movie, and it was this independent hit. It made a few $1 million, and it only cost $27,000. It was a great story. It definitely works for a lot of people. I still love that movie.
Yeah.
But, it's not going to gross $100 million. It's not going to be a giant hit. And Mallrats was, I don't know, they're like, well, hey, this is in an era where it's like, all right, the next step up is you make like the studio movie. And you take your voice and you turn it into something more mainstream. And I don't think Kevin Smith has that gear.
Yeah.
He made a Seth Rogen movie when Seth Rogen was the biggest star in America, and they made like $30 million.
Yeah.
That's just kind of like where his career is. But he has a niche. He does a bunch of podcasts. He was one of the first big podcasters, really. And he still makes movies. They're very small budgets and they're independently financed and they make their money back. But like you kind of never hear about them because of that.
It's fascinating because he's such a great storyteller as a person.
Oh,
when you hear him talk, it's captivating. But somehow, I don't know if he's trying too hard when it comes to screenplays.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just doesn't work as well as it does when he's just in front of the microphone.
Yeah, I think especially his voice kind of belongs in a different setting, Yeah. It makes more sense as a podcast. And even he even says now, like, I was always meant to be a podcaster.
Yeah.
I gained success doing this thing that was popular for a while, and I can still do it and make money at it enough to like keep doing it, but like no one's getting rich off of, Mm-hmm. So that's just kind of like I said, he's found his niche. But Mallrats, they expected this to be the next generation of studio comedy. They're like, who's the next guy? Well, let's go to those independent guys.
Yeah.
Kevin Smith, he made a comedy. We'll make Mallrats. Sure, like I don't understand it, but that's what the kids like, right?
That's what the kids like,
they didn't. It made $2 million, which is like atrocious.
Yes. Yeah.
Just atrocious. But it became an underground hit on VHS, DVD, cable, video stores.
Soundtrack helped it.
Soundtrack definitely helped it. But I think he operates better on the edges of the mainstream.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, he's still an all-timer.
Yeah.
I think Clerks is too important, and like his early career is too important to like that era. I think he's way more important to the history of film than he's generally given credit for.
I agree.
Even if I can like agree with the sentiment that like he's not actually a great filmmaker.
Yeah.
I
mean, the 90s changed cinema, and he was absolutely a part of that.
100%.
Yeah.
This was also one of the first geek-coded movies.
Oh, for sure.
Back then, the comic book movies were still considered like a complete joke.
Yeah.
Basically, like Superman and Batman were considered like outliers,
Right?
Because they were like the big names. They were like the number one guys on each, But I think to have the comic book art in the opening credits and Stan Lee in the movie.
Oh yeah.
This was a sign to this audience that was like at this point just completely underserved, and it kind of became like a nerd rallying call.
Yeah.
To like these movies, and this also kind of created the modern iteration of the cinematic universe.
Oh yeah, it did. I mean, the recurring characters that exist in Kevin Smith's movies
that all exist in the same universe.
Laid the groundwork.
Yes, I guess you could say like they technically existed in some ways and other things, but this was like the first time someone did it in like the comic book sense. So it's like, it's a different story, but it can cross over a little bit on the edges, and maybe you'll have like it's all definitely in the same world, and they talk about the same people, and that didn't exist in movies. That was like another thing to like gain people's attention.
Yes.
Keep people interested in it.
Yeah. I mean, we were 10 years away from the MCU as we know it today. And you're right. I mean, like this audience was not getting any sort of mass media apart from the comic books they read that was acknowledging their fandom.
Yeah, and then this movie came out and made $2 million, and people were like, look, people hate comic books.
Yes.
But like the content of it is kind of comic booky, but the style of this movie is much more Looney Tunes. This is a straight up adult live action cartoon. It's just completely madcap in a totally unreal world. It is just like completely goofball.
I don't disagree. And that's, again, something I think we'll talk about again tonight.
Yeah. And his cast, I mean, they always have just a really fun chemistry.
Yeah.
It just seems like they're having fun hanging out. It seems like they have a good time making these movies.
For sure.
They all understand why it's funny to Kevin Smith and his audience. It just seems like we're all in this inside joke together in a lot of ways. Maybe that's because it's so niche and so small.
Well, I think, it's quite literally an inside joke because a lot of these characters, I mean, like Jay and Silent Bob, you're not introduced to them. You only know of them if you have seen Clerks. And so you have to be a part of the community who appreciated that movie to get some of what's brought into this film.
And it also like Jay and Silent Bob were characters that people would know without really knowing.
Yeah.
They just knew, or even if they hadn't seen Clerks, they had seen Mallrats, and it's actually, that's something that happens in comic books a lot, where a character will be mentioned and you're like, fuck, that must be somebody important.
Yes.
I got to remember that name. And that's kind of how a lot of the Jay and Silent Bob stuff is, especially if you only pay a passing attention to these movies, you're like, well, yeah, I know Jay and Silent Bob, obviously.
Right.
This movie has a lot of great lines, great quotable lines.
Yes.
But I have to mention one of my favorites, which is I love the smell of commerce in the morning.
I mean, it's the right movie to kick us off for that very line.
Started right.
Yeah.
Most of this movie obviously takes place in the mall. And that was the dominant site of commerce in this country for decades, at least. I mean, I didn't spend a lot of time in the mall socially like these guys did especially after I was like, I don't know, 15 or 16 or something. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like that was like the place to be for so long.
Oh, it was. I mean, it's very nostalgic for me to watch this movie because to think back to my days in high school, I guess it was more junior high, like 8th grade, we would go to the mall just to hang out with nothing to buy, no stores in mind to visit. I mean, there would obviously be places we'd go in the mall, but yeah, it was just a way of killing an evening.
I mean, when you're that age, you're just trying to get out of your parents' house, like 90% of the time.
100%.
I don't know if malls are as receptive to that. I feel like they probably chase kids away more often than they used to. I feel like back then, like back in the 90s, people were like, whatever, you hang out at the mall. Like I've heard of malls who are trying to get rid of like the old people who come walk.
Really?
I've heard. I mean, I don't know how well that's going to stick, but like, come on. They're just old people looking for an indoor place to walk.
It's like water aerobics.
Yeah. So Mallrats, it's a 3.4 overall on Letterboxd. 868 users have it in their 4 favorites.
That seems low.
Including myself.
Oh, nice.
8% agree with my 5-star rating.
Yeah, it's a 5-star.
Including Charlie, who says in his 5-star review, a movie about how if you have fun and hang out, then everything will work out for you in the end. Which I think is pretty much kind of how the 90s were. We're like, this will all work out.
Yeah.
It didn't work out that way, but I'm putting Mallrats on the shelf this week for commerce.
It's a great place to start. I have to acknowledge a couple quick things. So I remember seeing this. I was 15 at the time when this came out. So I was at the age where I was a high school student like these guys are supposed to be.
Are they?
I think they are. Because they're talking about college and stuff like that.
Huh. I think they're like supposed to be like in college.
Well, don't forget, Trisha, the 15-year-old,
right.
They talk about her as if she's in school with them. She just happens to be younger.
See, now, okay. I always took it as she's just like in town. Like they know her from the mall. Oh, that's kind of how I took it. I think these guys are like this guy lives in his mom's basement and he's like embarrassed about that, right? Like it's like he should be out of the house.
He should be out of the house.
He's like in his early to mid 20s is the way I look. That's how I look at it.
Okay. Well, nevertheless, at the time when I first saw this, I idolized Jason Lee's character of Brody. I loved Brody.
Yeah.
Everything about him, from his wardrobe to his basement to the little cup that he carried around the mall. I was just like, I thought he was so cool. And I have to acknowledge the fact that in his little basement bedroom, he's got posters for 2 movies that I've brought to the shelf.
Oh my God.
He's got a Legend poster and a Tremors poster.
That's fantastic.
So clearly a fan of the show.
That actually reminds me of a thought that I had watching this, and I've seen this movie a billion times. Mm-hmm. And I've always big fan of him. And I think obviously in the 90s he was like, I don't want to say like aspirational, but you're like, yeah, this guy is like pretty cool.
So fucking cool.
But like now watching it, I'm like, man, I feel sorry for this guy. Like really feel sorry for this guy. Like he's funny. Like I would want to hang around him sometimes, but like his life sucks.
Yeah. I agree.
He's a fucking loser.
I agree. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was a great movie to go back to, and I agree. This is a 5-star movie for me. Not only because it's part of the Kevin Smith era that I still appreciate, but also because it just brings back great memories from that time period. This movie's so 90s in all the right ways. Yeah,
it is so of its time, which is, it's not the only movie tonight like that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you haven't seen Mallrats, if we have customers out there that haven't seen Mallrats,
go see Mallrats.
See Mallrats.
Yeah, it's on the shelf.
On the shelf. It's a classic.
Well, great first pick. I'm going to follow you up with a movie that I was reluctant to finally watch, but I decided to give it a watch for this theme, and I'm glad I did. So we're going back to 2016. I plucked this from the Dick Magic section of the store, which is it recalls a favorite line from the movie. But the film we're talking about is The Founder. So, back of the box. The true story of how Ray Kroc, a salesman from Illinois, met Mac and Dick McDonald, who were running a burger operation in 1950s Southern California. Kroc was impressed by the brothers' speedy system of making the food and saw franchise potential. He maneuvered himself into position to be able to pull the company from the borders and create a billion-dollar empire. Tagline: he took someone else's idea and America ate it up.
That's a good tagline.
It's a pretty good tagline. So, as I mentioned, I had been avoiding this. This is one of those movies that had been recommended to me by parents, and for some reason I'm skeptical of those films. I'd heard it was pretty good, but I also don't eat at McDonald's, and I felt like I kind of had the gist of this. So I wasn't particularly curious about this, and in spite of the fact that Michael Keaton's name was attached to it, I just felt like I knew what I was going to get. I'd also heard that this wasn't a particularly uplifting story, and I do want to come back to that part.
Okay.
Yeah. So, obviously this fits the theme because it's delving into the business world and the mechanics behind creating and scaling a successful enterprise. So, what we get is the birth of a groundbreaking new business model, the McDonald's fast food system, how it changed the way people think about eating, franchising, branding, and Kroc's ability to turn a simple, efficient restaurant into a global empire. And yeah, I was actually surprised by how much I learned in this. Namely, the idea that in order for McDonald's to ever begin making money, Kroc had to start thinking about this as a real estate business and not of a restaurant business, which I thought was so fascinating.
Well, that's one way to phrase it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a lesson in colonialism, I think, is what it is, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're a restaurant company. I'm the landlord.
I mean, you could. I think a lot of people look at this and see a pretty underhanded story here due to Ray Kroc's maneuvering. But I also see it as capitalism at work, which is the world we live in, and
yeah, that's what makes it so terrible.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, because, I mean, McDonald's, you see, like, at the beginning of the movie, first of all, the first half, or the first part of the movie, when we're learning the McDonald's system and how it works, like, I love that shit. I love systems. I love systems movies. I just love a good system.
Yes.
And so learning all that, and then in that point, McDonald's is like, it's like a quality enterprise, right? It's a restaurant where they're like, listen, we're trying to serve good food to people and be a good part of the community. Their slogan is McDonald's is family, right? And we see what happened. This movie's about how that became not part of the equation whatsoever. Like, yeah, we used to be family, and now we're the world's biggest landlord.
Yes.
And you see how it happened.
You do see how it happened.
And Ray Kroc is like kind of like we're on his side at first, and by the end of the movie, you're like, oh, he was a villain the whole time.
Yeah. At the same time, I see his conundrum because, you know, the whole idea of this becoming a real estate game is a consequence of McDonald's not really making money. I mean, he was out of money.
No, he wasn't making money. The McDonald's restaurants were doing fine.
But they weren't really they weren't turning a profit in a way that franchising is supposed to.
Well, that's the thing. The McDonald's restaurants, the franchisees were paying for the franchise, opening up restaurants, and those people were making money.
Yes.
And the McDonald's brothers were like, hey, as long as they're following our standards and we get our 1%, we're fine with this arrangement.
Right.
And Ray Kroc was like, "Oh no, I want to get rich." If I have to undermine the McDonald's brothers and the franchisees to do it, then I'm going to do it.
So I think that I definitely I remember the point in the movie where he was arguing for a higher percentage and wanting to break that contract. I never interpret that as him wanting to become a millionaire, but more he wanted to continue expanding. And then he's presented with the idea of, oh, well, we can fix this and also turn you into a millionaire. And that's when a switch flips for him. And he's like, well, that sounds even better than what I had in mind. Yeah.
But I think what gives away the game is the end. Because after the whole thing has like gone through, basically, and they're like, well, why did you want this? Why did you come after McDonald's? Mm-hmm. What was the why? You know, was it the system? Was it the food? And he's like, it was the name.
Yeah.
Right. And to me, that means like, yeah, I came in here, I stole your name from you because that's the value, and I used that to build a real estate empire. And to me, that's like, yeah, that's like the indictment of the whole thing, where it's like, yeah, this was never about serving people hamburgers.
Right.
This was never about upholding standards. This was about buying the land underneath a bunch of restaurants, and that's how you make your money.
I feel like he rewrote history a little bit when we get to the end, because he looks back on it and obviously an insanely wealthy person at that point in time, and certainly enjoying that lifestyle. And forgets perhaps how enamored he was with what he saw in that operation, especially even just when he thought it was a joke that they wanted to order 8 milkshake machines off of him and had to drive out and see why.
Yeah.
So
that's when we're on his side, we're like, man, like these people know how to run a restaurant. They go to the tennis court and they draw it up and they're like, this is how you do it. Now that's the kind of shit you're like, yeah, like that's ingenuity, you know?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That's like figuring out a system to serve hamburgers faster to people and people who want hamburgers and, you know?
Yeah.
And like, yeah, that's great. And it's like, okay, cool. We're going to take that and use it as a way to buy up a bunch of land and charge people rent.
For sure. And I agree with you. I loved the beginning where we get to see how the two McDonald brothers cracked the code and figured out a way to turn the drive-in restaurant model into something more successful and very different than anything else that existed at the time.
Yeah. Because
those businesses were not thriving. And sure enough, they died out largely due to McDonald's success. But that was so compelling to watch.
Like somebody figured out how to actually do this.
Yeah.
But also there's the moment when like the accountant guy who says like, you don't realize what business you're in.
Yes.
And that is such a compelling scene. It's a great scene. And also it felt like a moment when the entire American economy like took a pivot, you know, because that's when everyone realized like, oh, we don't want to be in the food business. We want to be rentiers basically.
Yeah.
And take a cut of everything, and who cares what the business on top of it is, right?
100%.
And that's kind of what the entire economy has become. That's what a private equity is when they buy Red Lobster. They don't give a fuck about serving shrimp and lobster. They don't they take the land, they charge Red Lobster rent. You know, they're like, even though they own both companies and they put one out of business, they're like, I don't know what happened, you know? And like, that's like, I feel like that scene is like the hinge point of the American story in a way.
Yes. And so, I mean, obviously we're highlighting something that happens in this movie, which is it pivots from being a story about why the original McDonald's model was interesting and different and successful to how Ray Kroc himself kind of took over this empire. Well, this business and turned it into an empire. And so, yes, Michael Keaton's character does become something of a villain, but at the same time, when you add it all up, it's a much more surprising story than I originally gave it credit for. And you can't take something like McDonald's, which is such a part of our culture now, and not wonder how it became what it is.
I don't think most people know the story either, the way it happened. I didn't. I saw this movie when it came out, but before that, I don't think I really understood how this all went down. I knew Ray Kroc was the guy that made McDonald's big, and his name wasn't McDonald's. So I'm like, there's obviously a story there somewhere. Yeah. I also knew that, like, I'm pretty sure the McDonald's I went to as a kid had a plaque of Ray Kroc on the wall. So I'm like, I guess this guy's a big deal for some reason.
Yes.
This was written by Robert Siegel, who wrote and directed Big Fan, which was a previous movie on the show.
Yeah, yeah. It's so this was directed by John Lee Hancock, and I can't remember what he's done. He's done a couple movies. I think he did The Blind Side and something else that's I can't remember some of his other films, but this was probably his most successful movie. A quick rundown of the cast before we move on. Michael Keaton's here, obviously. Nick Offerman is great. I just love when Nick Offerman shows up. He's so good, and
he's great as this guy.
Linda Cardellini is here, Patrick Wilson, and critical reception is really good here. This actually didn't do too well at the box office. It only grossed $25 million on a budget of $22, so barely made its money back. Great to see Michael Keaton back. You know, I think that after Birdman, this was one of the next bigger movies that he did.
This kind of gets overlooked recently. I really like this performance. I really like this movie.
Yeah, likewise. I
just like Michael Keaton in anything.
Yeah, he's good. He plays this part well. I have this as a 4-star movie. It averages a 3.4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. 333 people have it on their list of favorites. 23% agree with my 4-star rating. I did pluck this review by the user Russman, who said, "I always thought Ronald was the founder."
Not true.
Not true. So that's my first pick for commerce. It's going on the shelf. The founder.
Great choice. Okay, I'm going to take us to 2018. Movie is Sorry to Bother You. This is filed under main attractions.
I like it.
Back of the box. In an alternate present-day version of Oakland, black telemarketer Cassius Green discovers a magical key to professional success, which propels him into a macabre universe. Tagline, Destiny is calling.
Oh,
Blah.
that's just bad.
Come on.
Yeah.
What's Destiny?
Destiny is calling. Come on. Something's calling. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
Destiny.
I mean, I get the telemarketing calling, but like they went with Destiny. I don't know.
Bad.
So this is about a telemarketer played by Lakeith Stanfield who discovers that he has a nearly perfect white voice,
Yes.
which makes him an absolute superstar at selling things over the phone. And as he's working his way up to the power caller level, the low-level employees, including his friends and girlfriend, are in the midst of organizing a strike for better wages, better working conditions. And as Cassius gets promoted, this is like just as the strike is ramping up. And he's got to balance doing right by himself with sticking by what he believes in and sticking with his friends. But meanwhile, he's like nearly homeless as he's about to get this promotion. So this sounds like a fairly conventional story about modern capitalism.
Sure. Run of the mill.
Run of the mill. But Sorry to Bother You is probably one of the least conventional movies I've ever seen.
You can say that again.
Everything about it is just fucking weird. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a rancid version of our actual world. It's just like everything has gone sour or something.
Yeah.
This movie struck me as kind of what Idiocracy should have been.
Oh, interesting.
You know, it kind of has the same skewed view of the universe almost. There's a TV show in this called I Got the Shit Kicked Out of Me. It seems like it came straight out of Idiocracy.
Yes.
But I feel like that movie's not good, Idiocracy. It gets by on its premise, which is just like one of those like, yeah, I'm in, you know?
And its relevance.
And it's seeming relevance. Like, yeah, it's actually like a kind of a mess.
Yeah.
I think this is kind of what it was going for in a way.
Probably.
But in this movie, like, the people aren't any stupider. The world is really stupid. But, like, the people are just, you know, kind of regular. Like, reality is very heightened, but the characters, the performances are all very grounded.
Yeah.
Lakeith Stanfield is amazing as, like, the center of this wacky-ass world.
Yeah.
Tessa Thompson's great. Armie Hammer's playing a single Winklevoss twin.
Oh, my God. Armie Hammer is exactly right for this part.
This is a soundtrack that is incredible. I don't know if you...
I did not
notice
look
the
at
soundtrack. It's by The Coup, which is Boots Riley's band. He's the director, but he has a hip-hop band that I don't know that they've done much since like the early 2010s. Oh. They did do the soundtrack for this movie.
Interesting.
This is actually a script that was bouncing around. I think McSweeney's published this script. And I don't remember if I had read it. They published it in like 2014. Like he never planned on making this movie. He's like, no one's making this fucking movie. Like,
wow.
So he just wrote it, and I don't know. Eventually, someone was like, "Yeah, we'll make this," which seems wild that anybody would want to make this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, The Coup is they're a great band. Look them up, listen to them. They have 5 or 6 great albums. I listen to them all the time. They're kind of like a mix of hip hop and funk and punk rock.
Okay.
And soul. Like it's party music is what it is. It's kind of like a more kind of like a funner version of The Roots.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
With like way more radical politics.
Yeah.
Like a lot of satires, this movie over time starts to like almost seem inevitable, the future that it's positing. I think we're probably about 2 years away from what this movie, from the world this movie is warning us about.
God, I want to say you're wrong, but you're probably right.
So I would say like this is definitely a comedy. Yeah. But I would say probably if you want to check out this movie, do it soon because it probably won't be funny for much longer.
Yeah.
But telemarketing is the front line of commerce. And that's why I brought it to the table tonight. It is kind of the purest expression of commerce. It is just one person trying to sell some shit to another person over the phone. They probably don't even care what they're selling. Yeah. 99.9% of the time, they don't even know what they're selling. They could give a shit.
Yeah.
It's very inhuman, just like commerce.
Yeah.
It's one of the worst jobs out there. Like, it's kind of considered the worst job you can do that you're not like actually like holding a shovel or something. Yeah. Right. There's no humanity in it. It's just all commerce.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I was gonna say it feels like it's a relic from a bygone era, but it's not. It's just that we don't answer the phone when telemarketers are calling anymore. Yeah. And surely they are. But like that gets labeled as spam on my phone when a number comes up, and I never pick up the phone. But I'm sure they're still doing it.
Somebody is making sales on the phone,
which is bananas to me.
But and forever, it makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
So this movie is 3.7 overall on Letterboxd, and 5,100 users have it in their 4 favorites, and 11% of Letterboxd agrees with my 5-star rating, including Marion, who says, "Gotta watch this in a theater so you can experience everyone simultaneously muttering, 'What the fuck?' 2/3 of the way through." Which is, I didn't want to like give anything away in this movie. I think a lot of the fun of this is just kind of experiencing the fucked up parts of it.
Okay, I was wondering why you mentioned only the first half of this.
Just because, like, I don't know if there's a way to really talk about what happens in this movie in a way for it to even make sense.
No, and I wondered that while watching it because especially at a certain point, I found myself asking, how is Rob going to sum this up for our audience?
It's not really possible without like ruining stuff.
Right.
You just kind of have to, like, this is a very vibes heavy movie. Yeah. You just kind of have to like get down with Lakeith Stanfield and what he's doing. When the voices start coming in, you just kind of, you're like, what? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I've seen this movie 3 times now. And like, it starts to like, you start to understand what's happening. You don't understand why or what the fuck. It's a magical world. It's psychedelic. I don't know, it feels like it was made for me in a way, like it's speaking directly to me in a way that like, and it's completely unique. There's no other movie that's like this.
Nope.
Period.
No.
And it speaks to me and my politics, and I don't know. I just dig it. It's hard to explain.
It reminded me a lot of a Michel Gondry film, and he actually has a role to play in this, which we won't get into. But I have not given this a rating yet. So I saw it for the first time for this theme, and there's a lot to unpack. And I know this movie is trying to say not just something, but probably several things.
Yeah, it's saying a lot.
It's saying a lot, and that's where I'm struggling a little bit because I can't figure out what the core message is.
Yeah,
but there were definitely some things that resonated with me, and without spoiling anything, I can say that, a big theme is how money changes people, and when confronted with personal politics versus personal success, and when those two things are at odds, how do you negotiate that? And that's an interesting thing to watch unfold here.
I think that's the main message it's getting across. But yeah, it's dealing with a ton of themes. But to me, it's very funny. Yeah. Like, it's a very funny movie. It's a crazy comedy. It's very it's just kind of cool, like I enjoy looking at it. Yeah. I enjoy trying to figuring out like what is this person trying to do with her earrings?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot to look at and laugh at while you're dealing with these giant themes that like it can barely tackle in the runtime.
Yeah, there's some really interesting small details in this movie that I think are truly cool. Like
Yeah.
I think back to a scene when they're in the bar and one of the characters orders like the nice whiskey.
Yeah.
And in order to get the nice whiskey, they open a little door on the cheap whiskey and pull out a little airplane bottle of the nice whiskey, which I thought was like just fucking rad.
Yeah, there's just like those little touches that make this. I mean, it's unique in so many ways, but like especially in just those little touches. But this is a maybe not for everybody. There's a lot of off ramps to this movie. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
Like the rap scene. I think people are just like, what? Like a lot of people would walk out of like a lot of people walk out of the theater in this movie.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of chances for you to do that. And if you're at any point thinking, hey, this isn't for me, it might not be for you. This movie is not for everybody, but it's not going to stop me from putting it up on the staff recommendation shelf this week for commerce.
Well, I'm glad you did. And I'm not trying to come across like I didn't like this. I just need to spend more time thinking about it. I need to watch it again.
Yeah, it's hard to wrap your head around.
It is, yeah, but not in a bad way.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun to just unpack. So, great pick. Well, I'm going to take us back to the mid-'90s with my second pick, and I'm going with Jingle All the Way from the Got to Be the Shopper section of the store. And I figure we never really do a Christmas theme or a holiday theme in a way that we do a Halloween theme. So, given that it's that time of year, why not bring a holiday-related movie to the shelf, especially when it fits the theme?
Totally support that.
Yeah. So, back-of-the-box synopsis, Howard Langston, a salesman for a mattress company, is constantly kept busy at his job, disappointing his son. After he misses his son's karate exposition, Howard vows to make it up to him by buying an action figure of his son's favorite television hero for Christmas. Unfortunately for Howard, it is Christmas Eve, and every store is sold out of Turbo Man. Now Howard must travel all over town and compete with everybody else to find a Turbo Man action figure. Tagline: 2 dads, 1 toy, no prisoners. Which at least teases what you're getting with this this film.
Are we sure that Sinbad is a dad?
We're not.
I have some thoughts on him.
Yeah. Oh boy, Sinbad. Yeah, we're going to talk about Sinbad. So I have a small selection of holiday movies that are in the rotation every year for me. And I like going back to them and rewatching them. This has never been a part of it.
Yeah.
When I was introduced to Jingle All the Way a few years ago, I came to learn that this is actually in the holiday rotation for a lot of people. I mentioned to you that we actually have a customer who finds this to be peak Arnold Schwarzenegger. Not only his most quotable movie, but his best movie. I do not agree with that.
Tell that customer to come talk to me. That is an outrageous opinion.
I agree. Yeah, I do. However, have a soft spot for this film for several reasons. Now, how does it fit the theme? It's a sad truth, but the holidays are intrinsically tied to commerce.
That's true.
You can't separate the two. I think we'd like to believe that this time of year is about togetherness, joy, cookies, trees, candles, but
all those things entail buying things.
Yeah.
There's no way to do any of those things without buying stuff.
Yes. And Jingle All the Way knows that. Yeah. It satirizes the pressures of holiday shopping and the unrealistic lengths that people go for material goods. Now, I say that knowing that one of the interesting things that this movie does is capture a phenomenon that is gone from the world that we live in. Mm-hmm. And that's, lining up before stores open on Black Friday all the way through Christmas when, you're shopping for a specific thing and you have to find it.
Or there being like one toy of that year that everybody's trying to get,
right,
and it runs out, and
you
have to go all over town. That doesn't really happen.
This was made to provide commentary on the Cabbage Patch Kids craze from the 80s, but what it actually ended up doing was providing some commentary on the Tickle Me Elmo craze that happened right when this movie came out.
Wasn't it a Furby? Wasn't that
Furbies
one of the things?
were there
It was
too.
almost like
Yeah.
it was like you wanted to be the toy that no one could get. Like you almost had to engineer it to like not make just barely not enough.
Right.
And so everybody was like, "Did you hear? They ran out of Furbies." And everyone's like, "What's the Furby? It must be awesome. I'll buy my kid one."
Exactly. Yeah. And now you don't have to do that. You just have to like pull up your phone, open the Amazon app.
Yeah.
And
if it's sold
order the
out, it
thing
says it's sold out. You're out of luck.
You're out of luck. Yeah. Yeah. You can probably try finding it on a different website or at least trying to find it somewhere else, but it's likely going to be gone. And people are just okay with that now.
Yeah.
But going out into the world and actually like fighting for being able to purchase something is no longer a part of the world.
Let's bring it back. Let's bring back fistfights at Walmart.
Yeah.
Who am I kidding? There's fistfights at Walmart.
There probably are over different things, probably politics. But as I mentioned, this does star Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he had done several of his big comedies by the time that he got to Jingle All the Way. You know, like Kindergarten Cop was in a rearview mirror. A lot of the movies that kind of broke him out of that action movie mold had already happened. Schwarzenegger had just come off of Eraser, and he was about to do Batman and Robin when he made this.
Ouch.
So hardly his first comedic part. I don't think this holds a candle to Kindergarten Cop when it comes to laughing at Arnold on screen. I think that is a funnier movie.
I agree.
Yeah. And more quotable. But this one has some laughs in it, and Sinbad has a hand in that. So Sinbad, another thing from the 90s that is just gone. He was huge, and then he wasn't.
Yeah, whatever happened to that guy?
I don't know.
He burned brightly for a short time and then disappeared.
Yeah.
I feel like he's probably around somewhere. His character is possibly just a crazy person, right? Like,
quite possibly.
Like,
He could be a dad. He could be claiming to be a dad, but also one of those guys who just collects toys.
He seems to be claiming to be a mailman too. Like his uniform doesn't say United States Postal Service. It just says like mail delivery.
Yeah.
So like I think he's just dressed up as a mailman walking around town stealing shit.
And he's bad at being a mailman. I mean, he's like
spending
spending
he's a
most.
mailman.
He probably isn't. But he improvised a lot of his dialogue for this, and Schwarzenegger played along. You know, any of the scenes they were in together, Schwarzenegger just rolled with it and was like, "Well, I'm going to just say some things that seem like they fit with whatever you're saying."
Not sure that worked.
Yeah,
I don't know that.
I don't know that their chemistry
Yeah.
could be called chemistry.
Yeah, maybe if they were doing lines, but like I don't think Arnold's much of an improviser, and,
No.
and I just don't think it. I mean, yeah, they should have stuck to the script. Sorry,
Yeah.
Sinbad.
Yeah. This role was originally meant for Chris Farley, but they ended up choosing Arnold because, I think for the same reason that he felt right for Kindergarten Cop. You got this big action star.
Yeah.
He's like, he's also a dad, Howard Langston. But there's also Phil Hartman.
Pervy creep.
Yes.
Pervy creep.
Pervy
Phil
creep.
Hartman.
Yeah.
The character.
Yes. And man, anytime you see Phil in a movie today, you just miss him.
I don't like his character though.
I don't like his character. I mean, you described him appropriately, but he's
I don't think
funny.
I like
He plays it
anybody
well.
in this movie.
Really?
I don't think I like any of these characters. They're just all horrible people
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
doing horrible things.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a lot of likable people, although it describes, I mean, it showcases a world where people have to do horrible things, and there's not a lot to root for.
It's not even. It's not even a pro-Christmas movie. Like it's definitely a Christmas movie. It takes place at Christmas. It's about a Christmas experience.
Yes.
Actually, it doesn't take place at Christmas. It ends on Christmas Eve. But anyway, it's Christmas season. It's definitely a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a pro-Christmas movie.
No.
This movie is not in favor of Christmas in any way.
I mean, I'm going to spoil the the Letterboxd review that I plucked by Lien Cheetah 47, who said this is a horror movie.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I don't know that I would classify it as a horror movie, but it's definitely anti-Christmas.
Yeah.
It's like, I'd rather be selling mattresses than dealing with this shit with a holiday with my family.
Yeah.
It doesn't make Christmas seem like something people would want to do.
Well, this movie also does something similar to what you described with Mallrats, because you characterized that as kind of a Looney Tunes movie, and this movie gets right at some Looney Tunes tropes. Like, you have a cop that holds a bomb and a bomb blows up, and then you cut back to him and he's just like kind of tattered, but he's
Arnold
still standing
flying around on a jetpack. There's a lot of dumb
does some
shit like
wacky
that.
stuff in the third act. But
yeah, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like he barely knows his son in this movie. Like it seems like at a point I was like, is it possibly like he's married into this family? Like, because it doesn't seem like his son really knows him that well.
Right.
Which I guess maybe is part of the plot.
Maybe, yeah, indeed. But yeah, I plucked this because I do think that it captures a phenomenon that has disappeared from culture. And I do think that while it's certainly not peak Arnold, I appreciate Arnold in comedic roles. And I think he's got some funny scenes in this. He does have some quotable lines. And it brings a certain charm to the holiday season, at least the roster of movies that we normally get, that is different from the normal rom-commy Christmas movie that is often served up around this time of year. So I gave this 3 stars, which is exactly kind of what I want out of a Christmas movie. Is just like, it's good. And I
gave it 3 stars too.
Yeah,
I'm pretty forgiving with my 3 stars though. I didn't really like this movie. I mean, I've seen it a few times now for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't hate it, but it's just like I also don't like any of the characters. I don't know. I think that everyone's just a jerk. It's not that funny. I don't know. I wish it was. If it had a good opinion about Christmas, maybe I'd be more into it.
It doesn't. It has a real opinion of Christmas.
Yeah, I want my Christmas movies to be like, hey, you know what? Sometimes stuff is terrible, but Christmas is okay. Like, at least you can like have dinner with your family and.
Well, we do get that. We do get some redemption at the end of this.
Yeah, barely.
Well, this grossed $129 million on a budget of $75. It averages a 2.9 on Letterboxd, which is probably just about right. Yeah. I already mentioned my Letterboxd review, which was this is a horror movie. Maybe a little bit too extreme, but it's definitely a horrible experience to think about having to endure.
I wouldn't want to be this guy.
No.
I might want to rather sell mattresses than go out shopping.
100%. I'd give my kid a mattress for Christmas. You're gonna love this. This is something you're not gonna grow tired of.
Man, that kid gets a new mattress every year. Okay, I'm gonna take us to 2005. Movie is The 40-Year-Old Virgin.
I was curious about this pick until I rewatched it.
Were you were questioning its commerce?
Not questioning. I had some thoughts on how it would fit.
Okay.
And then I was reminded of another element, which I think makes it a great fit. But you go. And
okay, yeah. It is my turn. I guess I'll go. This is in the store. This is filed under late fees apply.
Ooh.
Back of the box. Andy Stitzer has a pleasant life with a nice apartment and a job stamping invoices at an electronics store.
Is that his job?
I don't know. I don't think that's his job, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's part of a job.
Yeah. I would expect that that's maybe, just a small
part. There's no way that's anybody's only job.
No.
But at age 40, there's one thing Andy hasn't done, and it's really bothering his sex-obsessed male coworkers. Andy is still a virgin. Determined to get laid. Stop saying Andy. Determined to help Andy get laid, the guys make it their mission to de-virginize him. But it all seems hopeless until Andy meets small business owner Trish, a single mom.
A single grandmom.
Single grandmom, that's right.
Yeah.
Tagline, better late than never, which is a thing you could put on this poster.
Sure.
Yeah, it's whatever. It is the tagline. So this is Judd Apatow's directorial debut.
Really?
Yeah, that came out 1 year after Anchorman, which he produced.
Okay.
And those two movies kind of kicked off the whole era of the Apatow comedy and the Apatow universe of movies. That was also the peak Will Ferrell era. The Seth Rogen universe kind of started here.
Yeah.
This also solidified Paul Rudd as a comedy star.
Yeah.
This era of comedy had a lot of improvisation to it. I think it goes better here than it did in Jingle All the Way.
Well, yeah, well, when you have comedians doing improv, it makes a difference.
Well, and also, like, these movies, it's all these comedians making these Apatow movies, and they all did the improv, and Adam McKay did a lot of it, and all these, like, really talented comedic actors. And then, like, for the years afterwards, all these other movies were like, yeah, we'll just do that too. And it's like, no, it doesn't really work unless you're, like, good at it first. They actually shot, because of that, they shot over 1 million feet of film for this movie.
Holy fuck.
Which is a lot. Back then, when you shot movies on film, if you went over 1 million, the Kodak company brings, like, really expensive champagne for everybody, and they, like, serve champagne to the cast and crew. They're like, yeah,
we're gonna make a ton of money off of you.
But you might remember this, but 1 million feet of film is still less than half of what James L. Brooks used to shoot Spanglish.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's incredible.
Which is still, I can't believe how much, how did they shoot 2 million feet of film for Spanglish? When they were making this movie, they got shut down after a week because the studio was looking at the dailies, and they brought Judd Apatow and Steve Carell in. They're like, this shit ain't funny, man. Like you look like a serial killer. Like, this is, like, you guys are making, like, this is not the movie we thought we were making. And
wow.
And they were like, trust us, it's gonna be funny. I don't know. Like, they're like, no, this isn't working. They also complained about Paul Rudd was too fat. Too fat. What? And Judd Apatow tried to hire Jason Segel for a role, and they're like, no.
Oh my God.
Probably because he's too fat.
Yeah.
But the cut of this movie that I saw was the extended cut. And this was also something that happened in this era, like, pretty much all the time, was the extended cut of the comedy.
Yeah.
Especially in the era of the improv scenes. And so every movie would just release, like, a 20-minute longer version of all these movies.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking, like, this one was 133 minutes. The theatrical was 116. I don't think I've ever seen the theatrical. I don't know that I saw this in the theater. And I have almost definitely never seen the shorter version.
So I definitely saw this in theaters, and I rewatched the theatrical release for this episode, but I've seen the extended cut every other time I've watched this. So, yeah. And it's like, it's cruder, there's different jokes, there's more nudity, all the stuff that you normally expect.
I mean, but also, I don't know, like, you know how I feel about runtimes, especially now.
Yes.
But, like, I don't know, like, extended cuts, that kind of became the definitive version of, like, the Apatow era movies.
Yes.
And, like, Knocked Up and all those other, it felt like when the DVD came out, that was the one everybody had and watched over and over again. And I think back then, when I was a younger man, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, like, give me 2.5 hours of this shit. Like, yeah, just keep being funny. And now I'm like, I don't even know that, like, this movie is too long, but, like, I just want one version of stuff now.
Yes.
I'm tired of there being 15 versions of Blade Runner, and I'm tired of there being 3 versions of this movie, and just pick one and make that your movie. I don't know, but like, then again, like, every time I watch this, I watch the long one. Yeah, because that's what I'm used to.
Right.
I just love the performances in this. Steve Carell's great. Catherine Keener's great. Paul Rudd obviously amazing. Seth Rogen's great.
Yeah.
Leslie Mann, Elizabeth Banks, Jane Lynch is fucking incredible. I didn't know she was, like, a comedic actor before this.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I, like, even really knew who she was. Then she became, like, just, like, in comedies constantly.
Yes. Yes.
Some of the humor here is a little bit dated. I think you wouldn't tell a lot of these jokes today, I think. So not all of it is aged that well, but I think it's not mean-spirited, so it doesn't derail the movie.
It doesn't derail the movie.
You know?
And yeah, I think that's an important point. I can't think of a Judd Apatow movie where there is mean-spirited humor.
Yeah.
But I think Romani Malco is maybe one of the funnier characters or actors in this movie.
He's a standout.
He's so good.
And also, he hasn't been in a bunch of stuff. He's been in a few things after this.
Yeah.
He wasn't in a bunch of stuff before that, but he just kind of pops off the screen, and he sets himself apart from all the other guys.
Yeah.
So Steve Carell's character, the Virgin, he works at an electronics store.
Yeah.
And it's called Smart Tech. It's basically Circuit City or Fry's.
Yes.
So they're selling TVs, VCRs, recordable CDs, Michael McDonald videos. Yes. So this is an instance where commerce is bringing people together, because whether it's to work or to shop, it's where some people make their friends in commercial settings.
Yeah.
And so these people wouldn't know each other without this job at the store where they're selling shit,
Right.
People need TVs. Someone's got to sell them those TVs. Brings people together, whether you like it or not. And sometimes you got to do that for Christmas and stuff.
Yeah.
Also, an aspect of commerce in this that you never really think about. I don't know if it exists as much anymore, but the idea of people working on commission in a big box store, which I think obviously Circuit City doesn't exist anymore. A lot of those stores don't exist, but I don't know, or the guys at Best Buy working on commission still. I don't think so.
Yeah.
So yeah, the idea of that is just so weird to me. It's I just came to get a TV. Why do you get a cut of this?
Yeah. Don't run up to me like a used car salesman and try to just harass me until I walk away. And that was the norm. At the Circuit Cities and the Smart Techs.
Yeah. But another aspect of commerce that's in this movie is the we sell your stuff on eBay store.
Yes.
That's the one you wanted to bring up. I don't know if those exist as much anymore. That was definitely kind of a thing that was around.
It's funny because I don't know if they exist as much anymore, but that is the thing that has ever stopped me from selling stuff on eBay is the work involved with selling it, packing it up and getting it out and even posting it, taking pictures of it, which is something that Catherine Keener's character handles start to finish. And I don't know, I found myself watching this thinking that this probably feels to a lot of people well, that's gone, but I wish it still existed.
I never really I don't really know what these stores were for. I mean, I guess that's where you collect stuff. It doesn't seem like a very efficient use of your money because rent's expensive.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess it's a storefront for collecting things.
Yeah, I guess it's a central place that people can go to bring their thing that they want to sell.
Yeah. So I guess you're getting a commission on that. I don't know. It doesn't seem like a good way to make. I don't know. There's a business model in there somewhere. I guess.
Right.
I don't really know what it is, but it is commerce.
Yeah,
it's definitely commerce.
Definitely commerce.
So the 40-year-old virgin is rated 3.3 overall on Letterboxd. 455 people have it in their 4 favorites, and 22% agree with my 4-star rating, including Maisie, who says, imagine trying to buy some technology from the electronics store and all the workers just act like that.
I would go back.
Yeah, Maisie's just trying to go to the store, man. She just wants to get her recordable CDs.
Yeah.
So 40-Year-Old Virgin, it's a funny movie starring funny people whose lives revolve around commerce. And so I'm putting it up on the staff recommendation shelf this week.
Elizabeth Banks is, I think, uncharacteristically hilarious in this. I mean, she's funny.
Yeah.
But she is fucking hilarious in this. But I have to ask. So first of all, I agree with you. 4 stars. This holds up. There are several things that feel like they're gone from our world, such as the Smart Tech store and whatnot.
Box of porn.
Right. Yeah, boxes of porn. But I also look at Steve Carell's character, and I know that they were looking to just make this guy as dorky as possible at the time.
Yeah.
But I think that today, he'd just be a normal dude. I don't think he'd have any problem finding,
yeah, here's the thing. Yeah, I think the idea of this movie is they're trying to make, he's such a dork because he's into toys and
rides
comics.
his bike,
he
which
rides
is
a bike.
why is that weird?
Yeah, but I think, that was just, what, I don't know. I don't think that's why this guy was a virgin at 40, you know. But I think this the reason. I don't know. It's a movie. You got to be like, and in 2005, you could still be like, well, if he's a virgin, then he must be into toys. You know, he must ride a bike. Yeah. Whereas nowadays, you would never. If you're like writing a movie about a virgin, it'd be an angry guy online.
Yes.
You know, it'd be a totally different character.
Yeah. Yeah. Rocking a red hat when he goes to the grocery store. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't help but to think about that while I was watching this, because it seems like it's easier than ever for people who have specific hobbies to find someone in the world who shares that passion, and there's just more acceptance for, you know, the things that seem weird about his lifestyle in this film.
But like also like even back when people who were into comics and stuff and sci-fi were the nerds and like that stuff wasn't cool at all.
Yeah.
They were still banging each other.
Yeah,
you know 100%. What I mean? You just notice the ones
theater
who
kids.
The theater kids, or the band, like they were, you know.
Yeah. So, I enjoyed this. This is still fun to look back on. And I'm surprised by how many movies we have this week, and we're about to do another one that provide a nostalgic look back at something that is kind of gone.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons we love movies is it takes us back to a moment in time.
Yes. Well, fine pick. I'm going to round us out with another mid-90s film, another one from 1995. And this is from the Damn the Man section of the store, and I am plucking Empire Records. So back to the box synopsis. At Empire Records, a beloved indie record store, the quirky staff faces a series of personal crises and life-changing decisions over the course of a single day. As the store teeters on the brink of being bought by a large chain, the employees band together to save their beloved workplace, leading to a wild, emotional, and often absurd adventure. Full of music, youthful energy, and personal drama, Empire Records encapsulates the rebellious spirit of the 90s. Tagline, they're selling music, but not selling out.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. So, some good taglines.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, this is probably one of the best tagline episodes we've ever had.
I think so, yeah. So, for me, Empire Records works similarly to how you've described several of your past picks, including one tonight. It is a vibe movie. It is a hangout movie for me, and that's why I enjoy it. At its core, it is about a record store that is struggling to survive, but you're spending time with the characters who inhabit this store, and you know their unique personalities and the drama that's occurring within the workplace. But yeah, you know, it's occurring at a time when record stores are on their way out. We're not a few years. We're a few years away from the advent of digital music. And
well, I mean, they were kind of at their peak at this point, right? Because CDs, like everyone bought movies, or everyone bought music on CDs in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't a digital, people were transitioning from tapes to CDs, and
I shouldn't say they were on their way out. What I should say is that
they were about to be.
They were about to be, but they were definitely being consumed by the larger record stores, you know, like the independent stores were having a hard time competing with like the national record marts and you know I forget some of the other ones.
That private equity was moving in. Commerce is taking over from the music, man.
It was.
Same thing was happening to bookstores,
which is funny because we've now turned the corner to where when music stores still exist, they're independent stores. You know, it's like independent record stores are still around. There are not big conglomerates.
Well, they're popping back up. Because it's a small enough industry that the small businesses are allowed to be in it.
Yes.
If vinyl records became like a multi-billion-dollar business like CDs were in the mid-90s, all those independent places would start disappearing.
They would go away.
We would all be like, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, it's true. So it's funny because this
episode is an indictment of commerce.
It really is. This would have also fit our all in a day theme because you know as much as it doesn't feel like this takes place in 24 hours, it's like less than 20. It's like 12 hours. But yeah, this is directed by Alan Moyle, and he was looking to create a movie that was capturing the spirit of the independent record store and the rebellious people that worked there. It originally was written as a much more serious film, and then the script went through a bunch of rewrites to bring in some comedy, which I think is, debatable whether or not it's actually
not that funny.
It's not that funny.
He directed Pump Up the Volume.
He did, yeah. So not a stranger to music and its power in film.
Yeah, or The Shelf.
But this was another soundtrack that was hugely popular in the 90s, and it's full of bangers. I mean, bangers in the sense that, just classic 90s songs. But there's an interesting cast here. Renee Zellweger is in this, and I was convinced going into this movie that I was watching another Joey Lauren Adams film, because she's in Mallrats, and at this time period, Joey Lauren Adams and Renee Zellweger are like doppelgangers.
Yeah, they
for one
looked
another.
exactly the same.
They looked the same. It was
kind of weird. Yeah.
I had forgotten that it was actually Renee Zellweger in this. Liv Tyler is here. Debbie Mazur is here. Anthony LaPaglia plays the record store owner, and I was convinced that he was a Baldwin, but it's
so close.
He's so close. But why did I choose this? So yeah, commerce definitely present for a lot of the reasons we talked about. Just the trends in the industry related to music and the fight that this store is undergoing to avoid becoming, a big record store chain. They're struggling to survive and manage to, but in quite an unconventional way.
Well, I think, this movie is a victory for the people running the store, because we can keep it going as an independent venture.
Yeah.
Because the guy that owned it decided not to sell out.
Yes.
To this big company, but the truth is, they're going to be out of business within 5 years.
100%.
Probably, right?
Yeah.
When did they all start going out of business?
I mean,
when did people stop buying CDs?
Napster was 2000.
2000?
And so that's right around the time of the iPod, and it was just all downhill from there for record stores.
Yeah. So you got yourself another 5 years of this business.
But that's what I love. One of the things that I really enjoy when I go back to this film is how much it romanticizes the record store as a job for high school students. And I remember thinking, that is the pinnacle of part-time employment. If I was going to work anywhere, that's where I would want to work. This
is actually the first time I've seen this.
Really?
I don't know how I've missed this. This is one of those movies that I'm I don't know how I missed it. I never saw it before this. This was my aspirational life in 1995.
Yes.
Yeah. This is the life I wanted to live, either in a record store or a video store.
Yeah.
And here I am living my dream. But this would have been this is exactly who I wanted to be when I was in high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to wear a flannel shirt and sit behind the counter at a record store and
play
be
my music.
That music sucks. This is good.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And I don't know. I think this movie is 90s as fuck.
Oh my god. I mean, even more so than Mallrats, maybe.
I think maybe,
which is hard.
Yes. But if you just watch, and I'm curious for your experience. I think watching it now, I'm reminded of this, but it's not really my memory of the film. My memory of the film is a lot like my memory of high school and the 90s, in that it's just a fever dream of kind of loosely connected memories and scenes. And there's, I think they're trying to do a lot with this movie, and not all of it adds up, but whatever.
Yeah, I think the idea, it seems like the idea was what if we made Clerks in the style of Dazed and Confused?
Yes.
Where it's just here's a day in the life of
Yes.
things happening.
Yeah. And it happens to be an important day.
Yeah. So it's people working in a store, so it's Clerks, but it's made in the style of Dazed and Confused, so it's all these loosely tied together things. The problem is that I think what you're talking about is there's kind of they're trying a little bit too hard to stick to a plot. You
Yeah.
know? And I think that really shows up in like the romance part where it's Liv Tyler and that dude.
Yeah.
And the movie, at the end of the movie, they like profess their love for each other and whatever. Sure. And it's a very 90s thing where you like this earnest declaration of love.
Yeah.
But like, I gotta say, like until that moment where they have that scene together, I didn't know that they were together.
I wasn't sure either.
Yeah, like I knew they were each talking about like this relationship, or at least he was, and I'm like, I didn't even know who he was talking about. Right. And then like this movie like ends on them going like, oh my God, like we're so in love. I'm like, I didn't know they were a couple. Like I've never seen them interact.
Yeah.
It's the first time they talk to each other, and I'm like, I didn't know. And so I think it's that kind of stuff where it's like, I think like. Maybe you should have just ignored that part of the movie. Right. Because I don't even understand why he's supposed to care.
I think the same criticism could be leveled at the storyline with the girl played by the actress from The Craft, who is like clearly going through some personal struggles, has attempted suicide, and like, we're supposed to sympathize with her, but we just don't get enough of her story. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sounding critical of this stuff because, yes, when it comes to a normal movie, you would be. But what I appreciate about this is not what I look for in a normal film. It's more just that vibe, that hangout.
The best parts of the movie are when the characters are like, let's put on some music. And then they just like sit around and listen to the music. And like, that's the best part of the movie.
Hang out in the back of the store. Yeah. No,
they're just like wearing their 90s clothes, listening to 90s music. And I'm like, cool. Like, I'm totally down with this.
100%.
So this, like, for me, this is like a 3-star movie. It's probably eventually a 4-star movie.
Yeah.
I got down a little bit about that love story at the end. I'm like, what? Yeah. Like, it just threw me off the whole movie. But I think if I go back to it, it'll probably end up being a 4. But I had to give it 3 this time. It's
a 4-star movie for me. But you're touching on something that's really interesting. So this averages a 3.5 on Letterboxd. I have this at 4 stars, but the scores on Letterboxd are kind of wild. Like there is a concentration of scores near the middle and top. Like it has 21% of people have this at 3 stars, 19% at 3.5, 23% at 4 stars, and then there are even 15% of users who put this at 5 stars.
Yeah.
And 3.8 thousand people have this among their 4 favorites. So it's just wild. And you kind of look back, you look at the reviews, and it's a lot of people that are just reminiscing about this time. Yeah. I think that this is a movie.
I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
Like I watched this. I had never seen it before. I'm like, I've seen this 1,000 times before.
Yeah. I think this is a movie for a very specific audience. I think you have to be somebody who grew up in the 90s, who remembers record stores, and
I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Oh, really?
I mean, I think the next generation can appreciate this.
I hope so.
I mean, I think that I think if you're like a 16-year-old kid nowadays, you can be like, that seems fucking cool. Just sitting around listening to music. That's not something people at their jobs. That's not something people do.
But I don't think it is something that people do today.
But I mean, it seems cool though. Right?
It does seem cool. And it was cool when it existed.
Like I said, I don't know how I missed this.
Yeah.
This would have been a 5-star movie for me.
Yeah.
Like this would have been my whole personality.
Yep. I totally agree. And it's still fun to go back to, even 30 years removed from when it was released. I had to pluck Julia's review from Letterboxd where she said, I need to see their Spotify Wrapped. I don't blame her. There's some...
I mean, it's a soundtrack. We got it.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So, Rob, money has swapped hands, goods and services exchanged, and once again we have a complete staff recommendation shelf, 6 movies, all of them dealing in commerce, and the films we chose are Mallrats, The Founder, Sorry to Bother You, Jingle All the Way, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, and Empire Records.
If you're on the internet, visit rewindvideopod.com or find us on Blue Sky or Letterboxd. And don't forget to like, share, and review the show. It does help people find it.
I love that we're on Blue Sky.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a great place.
Yeah.
Calming.
Look us up.
It's a place we belong. So, listen, next on the docket is something brand new that we're doing this year. Usually there's a best of episode that kind of wraps us up for the year.
Yeah.
But we're changing it up.
Trying something new.
Yeah. in 2024, we're delivering more new content, but
Yes.
not a traditional episode.
Yeah, it's not going to be a regular episode.
Yeah. Definitely something to look forward to, though.
I can tell people are excited.
Yeah,
I can tell.
they seem excited. I
can hear it.
Yeah. In the meantime, please do feel free to hit us up for a movie to watch, and we will see you next time.
Be kind, recommend. Hail Satan.